Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our council meeting of July 13th, 2026. I'll start with our Indigenous territorial acknowledgement. We would like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather, land on which we are broadcasting from today, is the land traditionally cared for by the Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, and Chinootan people. We also acknowledge your enduring presence and deep traditional knowledge and philosophies of the Indigenous people with whom we share this land today. Also, we'll take a moment of reflection. At the beginning of this council meeting, we pause to think about the needs of our community. May we show wisdom and compassion in all our decisions. Council, is there disclosure of pecuniary interest in the general nature thereof? Councillor Vasic.
Thanks through Mayor. I'm going to declare on item, I've been trying to pull it up and I forgot, so I don't know the number right now off the top of my head. 7B, disposition related to Sunview, related to my place of study.
Okay, thank you very much. So that's noted. I'll look for an approval of the minutes of the June meetings, June 8th and 15th, moved by Councillor Wright, seconded by Councillor Freeman. All in favor? That is carried. Okay, that brings us to our staff report, water supply allocation policy. And we have Joel Cotter and Lee McDermott. There's no presentation with this, but council, are there questions of staff? Go ahead, Councillor Hanmer.
Thank you, through you, Mayor, and thank you for the report, gentlemen. It's very thorough and self-explanatory. I just had more questions really around some of the approvals that we've done recently in the holding provisions and the tie to some of the financing. And have we given any thought to, should we go ahead with this, and knowing that permits may be called, how are we going to handle, or have we given some thought to how we're handling the holding provisions and financing?
Through you, Mayor McCabe, to the councillor. Certainly, there's lots to identify through the process to follow, but as applications are advanced or proposals are advanced, development applications through the site plan process, in parallel with that is often when we see applications to lift the holding coming forward. Holding's delegated to staff, so it is done and then through the planning division. And in conjunction with the site plan removal, we would be likely looking to lift a holding provision in that instance to time the timing of the holding removal consistent with when a building permit application could be made, and at the similar time when servicing allocation decisions could be made. So there's, as we work our way through that site plan into building permit stage is when a lot of these decisions will be made.
Go ahead for follow-up.
Just to follow on, and maybe more for clarity, that I appreciate that the priority we're giving, and it does fall with council direction of, is looking at those that are offering affordable housing or a rent geared to income kind of housing support. So those all require, as we all know, CMHC applications. And so are you anticipating any concerns with the deadlines that are coming up with the CMHC applications and the holding provisions?
Again, through you, Mayor McCabe, to the councillor, we would be working with the applicants on their timelines. Certainly, we've identified as a priority those that have timelines, and we'll try and emphasize and work with those individuals that have set requirements through senior level government financing arrangements. So it's part of the framework that we've established in conjunction with our counterparts in Kitchener and Woolwich so far, and Cambridge to follow. But the intention is yes, to work with those that have funding commitments towards affordable housing initiatives primarily.
Great. I'd hate for us to be putting people in a position to lose out on certain funding rounds. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you, Councillor Hanmer. Councillor Rowe.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Thank you for this report. I just have a couple questions about process. So I was wondering about how the applications will be accepted. Like, is it just a continuous thing? Are there going to be deadlines? So I was wondering if you could just expand on that a little bit.
Through you, Mayor McCabe, to the councillor. Certainly, we expect that there will be kind of a continuous flow of applications that will be coming in conjunction with development submissions. So as an example, in conjunction with your site plan application, likely you would have the form requesting a water allocation submitted at the same time. Equally though, when capacity timelines are coming forward, we likely will put a hard deadline to say we'll accept applications up to this certain date, to give us a bit of internal administrative time to review and formally make allocations. So it'll function a bit both, but once we get up and moving, I expect it'll be on a continuous basis that we see applications coming through.
And I'm wondering, after the region releases a bucket, how quickly do you expect to make allocation decisions? So, like as soon as possible, I'm thinking, like within, could it be a week and they know the answer?
Yeah, through you, Mayor, to Councillor Rowe. Ideally, as quickly as possible. I preface that though by saying that part of the process here will be governed by an administrative agreement between the region and the city. And that agreement isn't complete as of yet. And so the terms within that agreement will dictate and set out potentially some of the timeframes that will occur. So if the region, has provisions in there which we have to abide by, and that delays the decision slightly, then that is what it is. But the goal is to move forward as quickly as possible. We know time is important in the development and construction industry, and again, we want to move forward as quickly as we can.
Thank you. I just have one more
Yeah, go
question.
ahead.
I'm wondering about council receiving regular reports in terms of how the allocations are being distributed. I don't know if that's in your plans, but I'm curious. I mean, then that's certainly something we can talk about offline, but I was just wondering if that's something that council is interested in as well.
Yeah, through you, Mayor McCabe, to Councillor Rowe. Certainly, we can provide an update to council, regular updates in various forums. It could be, a consolidated annual update similar to how we do demolition control, but then a more frequent update, through email or other forums that are deemed appropriate through the communication process. But certainly we can keep council apprised. We're required to track and keep in constant communication, including monthly meetings with the region as we move forward. So as part of our tracking and communication, we'll certainly keep council apprised.
Great, thanks so much.
Thank you. Just a question to you, Councillor Rowe. Were you wanting to understand, which developments have been issued water, which ones, and then which ones are moving ahead and what the timeline is for that, or maybe some that haven't moved ahead and we're reassigning capacity, or is that
Yes,
what exactly were you looking for?
Yeah, I was looking for what has been allocated, who is going to move forward, and then perhaps, who might be rolling over into the next, phase of allocation.
Okay.
But essentially, I'm curious who's going to be moving forward as they're
Okay.
being approved.
Okay, thank you. Questions, Councillor Wright?
Thank you, through you, Mayor. My questions really concern the allocation policy itself and the way in which the city's policy then connects to the region. So in our policy, we talk about the Commissioner of IPPW, Integrated Planning Public Works, as being responsible for the supply development data to the region. And then who at the region is responsible? It's not, it just says that it goes to the region of Waterloo, but is there a person at the region of Waterloo who is thus responsible?
Through you, Mayor McCabe, to Councillor Wright. Very good question. I can't answer that question. I do not know. At this point, we know that it is to be provided to the region, but the mechanics around that have not been specified to staff. At this point in time, I suspect it will be through to the combination of likely the planning division and the water and wastewater services division. But exactly who, we're not clear on at this point in time.
Okay, thanks.
Just putting my regional councillor hat on for a minute. I mean, we are the region is in the process of recruiting a new commissioner for the water services, water wastewater services. So, but just to be clear, once once the region provides the water, then it's our, at the city of Waterloo, like the region has no further involvement in this. I mean, we'll inform them when, as we need to do, but they have, there's no further direction they need to take.
Respectfully, Mayor, this is how we got in trouble in the first place.
I'm just saying this is, but the province changed the rules around who has authority for planning. We have the authority for planning. The region has no more say once they.
I understand
once they
that, but
provide
the
the
question is about supplying development data to the region of Waterloo, and who is aggregating and analyzing the total growth and commitments, because that's what was missing.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's not a good question. I'm just saying that the provincial rules changed, and so, the regional government has no longer any responsibility on the planning side. So, do I agree with that? No, but this is the position that we're in.
Okay, so building on that, because there's a missing element on the region side, so we'll just acknowledge that. Going to section 5.4, where we focus on the validation of the demand. So the area municipalities are doing the validation process. But one of the questions that I have is if, for instance, 2 or more area municipalities are in an exception are required to generate an exception report. So their validation is showing issues with or incongruence with the allotment. And if for whatever reason, a failure to appropriately provide oversight, or maybe there's staffing or capacity issues, which are common at cities, what redundancy is in place then in order to have that bird's eye view of the total aggregated demand analysis?
Through you, Mayor McCabe, to Councillor Wright. Good question. The validation process was something that the city, through city utilities, asked to be incorporated into the policy, essentially to hold those that are making applications to the city accountable. We want to make sure that the submissions that are being advanced by the developers and professional engineers are accurate, and if there is an issue, the validation mechanism in the policy allows us to request for confirmation as to whether what they submitted is consistent with the actuals, and if there is an incongruence, then how to resolve that issue. If ultimately it results in an exceedance where we have issued an allocation beyond our permission, what I'm told from the region is the region would then deduct that exceedance from our next round off the top and then provide us the next bucket through the next quarter. So there is some systems in place, but this is really for the city to make sure that we are holding those that are making submissions to us accurate, robust, complete, and if we're seeing issues, again, city utilities has the ability to check actual versus what's been proposed and to address those concerns on a go-forward basis.
So just as a follow-up, are we the only area municipality then that has this validation process, or will every municipality and township affected have it?
Through you, Mayor McCabe, to Councillor Wright, another good question. We inserted this policy into the, inserted this requirement into our policy after the City of Kitchener completed their policy and the Township of Woolwich. But I've had discussions with both my counterparts at those municipalities, and they are supportive of this approach. And likely, as updates to their policies come forward in the next couple of months, these will be iterative updates to policies. It's highly likely that you'll see validation requirements in their policies as well. They were quite keen on this provision.
Thanks for that detail, and I'm really encouraged by that, because I think it's a really important element of this entire allotment policy. The last question that I have just has again to do with discrepancies between the different area municipality allotments. So there was a question that came up about the use it or lose it, and a 5-month versus a 6-month period. And I'm just wanting to know if there's a particular rationale as to why ours is 5 months and others might be 6 months.
Through you, Mayor McCabe, to Councillor Wright. Good question. We have been working closely with our counterparts in Woolwich, Kitchener, and Cambridge on our policies. There are some slight changes or differences with them. This is one. Kitchener's policy is structured that they have a 6-month time frame to not only pull a building permit, but also commence construction, which in our view is extremely aggressive to get from site plan to actually building within 6 months. So we reduced it slightly to 5 months, knowing that in many cases, our building permit applications start to flow in concurrent with the site plan process. So once site planning is advanced to a reasonable stage, often owners will ask us to submit building permits in parallel with the site plan process. So there is some review that's being undertaken at the same time. And once final site plan approval is granted, providing a 5-month time frame to secure a building permit should be reasonable in most of our, or for most of the applications that we see. I would also add that the use it or lose it is discretionary. It's a may, it's not a shall. So if we see somebody diligently working on their application and they're 5 months out and they're not quite there to pull a building permit, but they're diligently working there, I can't imagine that we would actually say your allocation is gone. We would say, you know, finish it off, finalize the last few issues that you need to resolve through your building permit application and proceed. But if after 5 months we haven't seen any activity on a building permit application, we're likely to withdraw that allocation and move it to somebody who wants to build.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, lots of great detail there.
Yes,
Thanks.
thanks, Councillor Wright. Councillor Bodley.
Thank you, through Mayor McCabe. You answered the bulk of the question that I was going to ask, but maybe just to speak about it at a higher level. As you noted in the report, you're working closely with Kitchener and Woolwich. This is an iterative process. There's going to be multiple rounds of sort of adjustments that are possibly made to this allocation policy. Can you maybe speak to, obviously there's value in alignment with the development, for the development industry in across each of the municipalities here. Over time, what's the process that we're going to be using to evaluate any minor differences between our policy and Woolwich's and our policy and Kitchener's? And how frequently do you anticipate that you're going to be coming back with updates or modifications to the policy?
Through your Mayor McCabe to Councillor Bodley. At this point, it is a very collaborative approach between the area municipalities at all levels, between the planning heads, the chief building officials, and our engineers, and city utility folks. So we are working very closely, sharing information, strategizing about optimal ways to try and move things forward. I meet from a planning perspective weekly with my counterparts in the other area municipalities to talk about strategies. In terms of timing, it simply worked out that Woolwich, their council meeting in June 23rd was the first off. Kitchener was then second, and our meeting is today. So it is not by any strategy that there's that order. It's just how the council dates set up. But we knew that, as for example, Woolwich went in with their policy being first, that they would watch and observe how the industry responded to, for example, our policy, our updates, and then Woolwich will be returning likely within a few months back to their council to, again, bring some refinements to their policy to, again, continue to align. And on a go-forward basis, I would say that as we see anything of a critical nature, we will certainly come back to council. As we work through the incremental details of it, there's, again, delegated authority to the Commissioner of Integrated Planning, who has the ability to apply reasonableness and good judgment to making things work smoothly with the development industry, and that is the goal, is to try and have an easy process that the industry region-wide that is operating within the Mannheim service area can do so with confidence and consistency.
Thank you, Councillor. Are there other questions from council? Just a comment from me, I just wanted to appreciate, or say thanks. I appreciate that there's some language in there. I know we don't have the ability anymore to require high-performance development standards, and I'm thinking of water conservation systems, but that it's on page 30 in there that there's consideration around that as a criteria in terms of advancing, like prioritizing different developments that could go forward. So thank you for that, for picking up on that. I hope the development community sees that, and I think we've been pretty clear. These are things that are important now, but certainly in the future, because the water system has been stabilized, but we still need to do, there's a lot of work that still needs to happen on the long-term water supply strategy, like across the region. So conservation systems being put in place are really important. So thanks for highlighting that, or including that in the work that you've done here. Okay, I don't see any other questions or comments from council. So we do have, let me just go back here. We did need to, if you direct your attention to the recommendations that are on the screen, because we've added, there's been a slight change. We need to add, take out the X's and add the actual report numbers in that, but then also add the delegated authority of the Chief Administrative Officer and the City Clerk to execute an administrative agreement with the Region of Waterloo and other area municipalities for the allocation of water supply capacity, provided that the form and content of the agreement is satisfactory to the city solicitor. So that's been, I don't think, you didn't need to speak to that, did you? No, okay. So those are the three recommendations there. I'm looking for a mover, moved by Councillor Wright, seconded by Councillor Hanmer. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much to Joel and Lee and your teams. We know you're putting a lot of time and effort into this, and a lot of meetings with your counterparts across other municipalities and across the region, and of course our lawyers as well. I know Judy and Christina have put a lot of time into this as well. So thanks. We know there's more work to do, and we look forward to ongoing updates. All right, so Councillor Vasic, we'll just give you a minute to step out as we move to the disposition of part of Sunview Street. Okay. So council, again, there's a number of recommendations here around this issue. Are there any questions from members of council around this? Just double checking my own notes. Whoops. Okay, seeing no questions. Is there a mover? Moved by Councillor Wright, seconded by did you have a question? Oh, okay, Councillor Freeman, seconded by Councillor Freeman. Okay, then all in favor, that is carried. If someone wants to just let Councillor Vasic know. Are you, thanks Christina, that she's back, okay. No time for delay. Okay, the next is amendment to delegation bylaw to address certain courses of action for the Ontario Land Tribunal appeal matters. This is an intent to streamline the process. Council, are there any questions about this? Seeing none, okay. Moved by Councillor Freeman, seconded by Councillor Rowe. All in favor? That is carried. Okay, 2 for 2. Thank you very much for that. All right, now we're into a formal public meeting. Just give me a second here. Okay. Okay, this is, you're anxious to get to the podium, okay. So this is a formal public meeting to consider item 8A, Official Plan Amendment Number 63 and Zoning Bylaw Amendment Z25-05, Uniweber Properties, Inc., 200 Weber Street North. Any persons who want further notice of this application, including the passage of any bylaw, should sign the appropriate register in the binder located on the desk at the rear of the council chambers. If there is more than one binder, please make sure you are signing the appropriate one. Will the clerk please advise council of the method used to give notice of the meeting and the dates notice was given?
Notice was advertised in the Waterloo Region Record on June 27th, 2026, and mailed or emailed on June 25th, 2026. to all property owners within 120 meters of the subject property and to public agencies. An informal public meeting was held on April 8th, 2025, and an initial formal public meeting was held on December 8th, 2025.
Thank you. The city's planner, John Voss, will now give a brief overview of the application. Over to you.
Good afternoon, Mayor McCabe, members of council, city staff, and the public. As noted, this is the final public meeting for the official plan amendment 63 and zone change Z2505 for the lands at 200 Weber Street North. These applications will look very familiar. We've discussed them a few times in these chambers. They were previously endorsed by council on December 8th, 2025, and are now ready for a final decision. I'll still take a few minutes to review the application details as a refresher. The subject property is on the east side of Weber Street between the fire station and House of Friendship. This is the former location of the White Rose store, which was demolished in 2024. To the east is the Village on the Green townhouse condominium and Laurel Creek, which flows north towards the Grand River. The applicant is proposing to construct a grocery store with offices on the second story. The official plan amendment application will add food store as a permitted use to the corridor commercial designation and designate the floodway portion of the lands as open space. An area-specific policy will also be added to ensure a flood emergency plan is prepared for the development and to prohibit a gas station on the property due to the flood risk. Zoning amendment proposes to add food store as a permitted use, change the zoning for the floodway lands to OS3, prohibit a gas station, and reduce the parking rate from 175 to 105 parking spaces. Staff support these amendments. As noted, the property is within a special policy area where flooding is expected to occur during severe storms. The provincial planning statement requires any changes to the official plan policies within the floodplain to be approved by the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing and the Ministry of Natural Resources. An application package was submitted to MMH and MNR earlier this year, including council's decision in December to endorse the applications. The province reviewed the submission package, and both ministers for MMH and MNR issued their approval on June 19th, thereby enabling council to proceed with the final decision on the applications. Having reviewed the application and considering all comments received through this process, staff recommend that council approve the staff report and approve OPA 63 and Z2505. Any questions?
Thank you very much, John. Council, are there any questions? Councillor Bassett.
Yes, thanks you, through you, Mayor. I had a couple of questions, and I actually meant to chat with you about them ahead of time, and I totally forgot. They're here, though, and now I'm also just trying to pull up the report to make sure my questions make sense to me. I'm so sorry for this, everybody.
No, it's fine. This is what we're here for.
Well, yeah, to
ask
deal with
these
my
questions.
disorganization. Let me pull up the site-specific. I'll ask you, and then if the question doesn't make sense, I'll go back to this. Just because the actual site-specific bylaw isn't actually in the new report, but it was in the one from December 8th, I just wanted to know if the holding symbol will remain on the zoning as it was in that report, because we didn't see it in this new report. So I'll find it for you.
My understanding is that there is no holding on that one. Now putting me on the spot.
I know, that's
No, it's
why
good.
I want,
It's
not,
good.
it's not, I'm sorry, John.
No, I don't think there is a holding on this one. We're addressing all of the details that would need to be addressed through this process. So there will be no further items that need to be addressed as a result of this.
Okay, so I have this site-specific bylaw from the December report, and there is a holding symbol there. So on the new site-specific, there will not be a
There will
holding
not be a
symbol because
holding.
we're dealing with everything here.
Yeah.
Okay. And we're dealing with it because we believe probably there's building permit probably won't even be issued in this particular case anyways.
There are floodplain considerations that will need to be addressed at the time of building permit, but the floodplain matters as a result to this application have been addressed
Right.
in order to allow the policy changes and the zoning changes to proceed.
Yes, but this report, I think, also says, which I'm also going to have to find,
Sure.
that in all likelihood, building permit Based on available information, the proposed development does not appear to comply with the Ontario Building Code. A building permit is unlikely to be issued.
That is correct. And sorry, just as I look back through my notes, through Mayor to Councillor Vasic, there is a holding provision and baked into the zoning bylaw, which requires the production of a flood emergency plan, so that if a building is constructed, that the occupants of that building will be prepared and know what to do during a flood event. So do you stay in place? Do you evacuate the building? What would be the procedures? And so that emergency plan would be a requirement that is secured then through that holding provision. So that is something that will be added in. And that reflects in the official plan policy as well about ensuring that whatever development does occur would be safe. Now, consecutively, we're also looking at what the flood depths are and safety factors. Could a building actually be constructed here, and will it be in a safe condition? And under our building code requirements, every property has to have safe egress to the property and to enter and exit the property. So can a fire truck or an ambulance respond to this building during a very severe flood event? And under our worst case scenarios, we're expecting 1.4 to 1.8 meters of flood water on the property, which exceeds our minimum requirements. So in order to develop on this property, they have to be able to show how they can get safe access to dry land. And that hasn't been confirmed yet, but that'll be a detail that has to be dealt with before any building permit could be issued. The discussion today is more just at the policy level, is a food store appropriate use in this location?
Totally. So my very specific question is in the December 8th report, it has, this on the site-specific bylaw, and here under zoning, it has H in brackets. I just want to make sure that H is staying, and you confirm that that's the case.
I confirm.
Thank
Yes,
you.
that's correct.
Okay, thank you. And then I
Thanks.
have a second question that will hopefully not have to do this thing. Yes, okay, map 2 on the December 8th report. Yes, okay, so there's things, map 2 from December 8th, map 3 from that report of the proposed zoning amendment and so of the OP amendment and the site-specific bylaw are still the relevant documents. They're just not included in this report, like for brevity and ease of reading.
That's correct, through Mayor to Councillor Vasic. The final report that was presented for council today is very brief. It just reflects back to the previous report because that contains all the information. And the map that was referred to is similar to what's on the screen here, identifying the area where flooding could occur and the area where flooding will occur, the
Great.
floodway. So no development is permitted in the floodway, and the zoning and official plan policies will reflect that. And then the front half of the property, the lighter gray, is where development could potentially occur again if you can get safe egress.
Thank you so much.
Awesome.
Thank you, Councillor Vasic. Are there other questions from council? Councillor Wright.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor, just as a point of clarification, is the holding provision also there because of previous contamination and the need for a record of site condition?
If residential was proposed, then that would be a requirement. But for the grocery store, it is not a requirement.
Okay, so it's not required for, okay, thanks.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Wright. I just also wanted to make sure I understood why there was the need for the holding provision. So if I understood you properly, so as long as the owners have like a safety plan, I think you called it, for being able to leave the building or shelter in place or whatever, that fulfills the need for the holding provision?
That is one of the requirements to ensure that when the development does then proceed, we will then know for sure what that safe emergency practice will be before they even get to the building permit stage.
Okay.
So that we know, can something be built here safely from an emergency services perspective? And then from a building perspective, there's the other requirement of flood depths and safe egress needs to be factored in.
Okay, and I don't know, and maybe this is a question for the developer, but like what's involved with creating that safety plan? Like, is that a very onerous process, or is this something that will create much delay in terms of being able to move forward?
It's a fairly straightforward document. It's site specific, so every development that would need one has to prepare their own based on their unique circumstances, but it's a template, a document that we have ready, and they would just have to fill in the relevant information into that template.
So it's pretty straightforward.
Pretty
It shouldn't-
straightforward.
Like, it shouldn't really cause much delay in terms of being able, I mean, I guess depending on what comes out of it.
That's my understanding, and it would be specific to whatever type of building they're planning to build. So if they do the grocery store with an office above, then we know what the requirements would be for that building. If it's a different style of building, say they open up an office without the grocery store, then there may be different safety requirements for that, and so then that document would reflect whatever the actual building is they're proposing to build.
Okay, okay. And then it's different from the House of Friendship, which was formerly a hotel, because it was an existing building, and then also on the other side, there's one of our own fire stations. So those two buildings were already there, and so it's just like a different process, because I'm not sure the time of when either of those were built, but
That's correct. So those are existing structures, and these are new procedures we're bringing in to ensure more rigorous safety permissions for new development.
okay, thanks, that's helpful. Did you have something you wanted to add, Joel?
Through your mayor, just to expand on Mr. Voss's comments, the flood emergency plan is coming from the province through our engagement with the province and their clearances. But the holding provision is also applied for a noise provision that was addressed and discussed at the formal public meeting. So it's applied for two reasons: one, for a noise, and second is the emergency management flood emergency plan that Mr. Voss spoke to.
Okay, thanks very much, that's helpful. All right, seeing no other questions from council, then I will ask if there are any registered delegates who want to come forward, and there is Kristen Bearsdale from GSP Group. Welcome, Kristen. May need to adjust the podium, but whenever you're ready.
Good afternoon, I'm Mayor McCabe and members of council. I will keep this very brief. We've been up here a few times talking about this application, and John's given quite a thorough overview as to what we're proposing and what the site encompasses. What you see on the screen right now is the preliminary development concept that was submitted with the application. This has not changed at all since the December 8th public meeting in which you saw this. As Mr. Voss noted, the intent is to provide for a food store on the site. The site has surface parking that surrounds it. It's got loading provided for at the rear of the property to ensure that it's being screened from the Weber Street access. It continues to maintain the shared driveway access that it has right now with the House of Friendship to the bottom of the site, if you will, or the south of the site. And as Mr. Voss had noted, there is a slight change in the designation and zoning from what's there right now in an effort to ensure the protection and no development in that floodway. So you can see at the very rear of the property, we've got a label on it that says floodway. There is no parking, no structures, no access proposed to that portion of the site. What you see in front of you now is just a proposed or conceptual elevation of the building. As Mr. Voss touched on, the intent is to provide for a two-story commercial retail use. The ground floor would be accompanied or would be accommodated by the entire grocery store, and then a portion of the second floor would be a portion, I guess, of the ground floor would include a second-story office space for a variety of office purposes in accordance with the official plan designation and the zoning bylaw. Again, we are looking to simply maintain the commercial corridor designation on the property and add a permission for a food store. Similarly, we are looking to maintain the existing corridor commercial zone on the property and add a food store, as well as address a site-specific parking rate. And then, as Mr. Voss noted, applying that open space provision or open space zone at the rear of the property. As you were discussing before I approached the podium, there are some additional technical considerations associated with the site that the owner is well aware of as it pertains to the building permits and having to go through that process. I laughed when you asked if the flood risk assessment was an onerous process, because I'm sure Mr. Voss would agree that the site special policy area flood risk assessment process was also very onerous. So the property owners are very aware of what they're getting into. I believe that they've started to have some discussions with members of council as well as members of staff as to how we approach. This is a problem not only for this site, but as you saw from Mr. Voss's imagery, the larger area, that entire intersection of University and Weber is essentially captured within this floodplain area that has problems in terms of issuing building permits for redevelopment. As noted previously, the White Rose was on this site. It sat empty for a number of years and was finally demolished in 2024 for safety and safe and healthy purposes. If we had left the White Rose building the way it was, that could have been adapted to a food store. So it shows you some of the uniqueness that we're dealing with in terms of some of these policy interpretations and some of the requirements under the Ontario Building Code. But we continue to kind of move through that process. Again, they're well aware of it. And we're hoping that collectively, with the city's help in approaching the ministries and as well as the Ontario Building, I'm not sure, Commission, that we can come to some kind of resolution that would apply to the entire area or find a way to kind of work around our redevelopment potential for the entire site. And that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you very much, Kristen. And just on that final point, I will note that the city, pre my time here, but it continued well during my time here, we had a task force that worked with Minister of Municipal Affairs office to try and come up with like a broader solution to this policy challenge, and requested a minor tweaking of one of the regulations, and it came back, no, it has to be site by site. So we tried for about four-ish years to get them to make changes in that, and that was with the working with GRCA as well, the GRCA in the city. But anyway, we are where we are. So, Council, are there any questions? Councillor Vasic.
Thanks through Mayor McCabe. Hi. Thanks for your presentation. It is like a very confounding what is happening here. And I just wanted to highlight what we talked about in the December 8th meeting again about notwithstanding floodplain issues, but the need for a grocery store there, and then also how the neighborhood behind, which is Village on the Green, would have some interest in pedestrian access so that there would be some ease there for walking to get groceries. So, you don't have to go around the whole neighborhood. So if that's possible, I'm just highlighting that again. But I do have two questions. Like how you just ended what you said there was very confusing. You said so many things that seem to have different meanings, and so there's so many threads to pull on there that I haven't even quite made sense of. But I would like to say about one point that you made, which is that had they not demolished the building, it could have been a food store. And so that raises questions of okay, yeah, they demolished it for health and safety reasons, but why didn't they just move ahead with a food store there if that's what was really interesting to them? So I don't know if it was so not contaminated, but so decrepit that they couldn't have put it in, or that was prohibitive. So maybe you can speak a little bit more to that.
Sure, through you, Mayor McCabe. Sorry, I'm just thinking about this in my head. I'm going to verbalize this. Uniweber has owned the property for a long time, and the property has been on the market, if you will, or they've been looking to dispose of the property for a long time. Previously to OPA 58, you may recall that the official plan, City of Waterloo official plan, had some pretty restrictive policies in terms of some of the types of commercial uses that were not allowed or were restricted within the commercial corridor designation, which included food stores, department type retail uses, personal services and stuff like that. So that in of itself posed challenges to Uniweber in terms of potential purchasers of the site. When the city started going through OPA 58 and started looking at the possibility that they were going to broaden their commercial corridor designations and acknowledge that perhaps food stores, personal service shops were appropriate in the commercial corridor designation, that's when it really started to pick up traction with Uniweber and their potential purchasers for the site. We recognized that we still had to do the private OPA ZBA because we were in the special policy area, but it was kind of a turning point in terms of the marketability of the site and the appeal of the site. Unfortunately, in 2024, the decision was made to demolish the building, like I said, because of health and safety risks. There was a lot of vandalism that was happening on site, a lot of transients that were using the site illegally, and it was just the building itself was not in very good shape, not structurally sound, and it was determined at that point to demolish demolish the building. Simply from a liability perspective, it was actually becoming more of a liability to those who were using the site illegally than it was to keep it up for potential purchasers. At that point, they didn't have a sense of when purchasers would come along and want to use the site. So that's a bit of the discrepancy. And we had multiple conversations, multiple meetings with city staff, building department, cautioning about the implications of removing the building and what that would mean from a building permit perspective. But ultimately, it was determined that it was best from a liability perspective to remove the building.
Okay, thank you. That's a really helpful background. Just to clarify, you mean that that city staff cautioned that it would be there would be risks associated related to actually getting to build if they demolish it?
Yes, through you, Mayor McCabe, yes, the city has been very upfront about this. Okay. Uniweber has gone into this with eyes very wide open as to the process.
Okay, thanks. I'm going to think a little bit more. Maybe I'll have additional questions, but I do just want to point out something, which is that you mentioned that they have been in touch with, in regular communication with city staff, and they've also met with members of council. Now, I don't think I'm an important person, but I do think a ward councillor would probably, if they've reached out to council, they would probably have reached out to the ward councillor, and I've never heard from them. I think that's not true. I think that they sent me an email, which is good, but I don't think we met. So I could be wrong about this. If I'm wrong about it, I'm happy to retract this statement. But I just want to be sure that I met with them and I understood, and I want to also know why that was important to them. I'm not going to be here next council term, so they may want to connect with whoever is that councillor, but that just seemed like a disconnect for me, so I wanted to flag it, but I'll check if I'm wrong about that.
And perhaps I should clarify through you, Mayor McCabe, there was a lot of provincial prodding, poking, championing that had to be done. I believe that they met with Mayor McCabe in order, it was not necessarily related to the OPA itself and processing the OPA. It was trying to get through some of the red tape of the province taking so long to review the flood risk assessment and get the information to the city. So I believe that there has been that level of communication, more from a political up, if you will, to expedite the process rather than trying to facilitate the development.
Yeah, thanks very much for that question. I think overall this is a site as you've outlined and as John outlined that's been sitting vacant for many years. And I know when they came before, I mean it's been a long-standing. There's been a lot of back and forth and a long-standing property that needs some attention. So I don't know if there's other questions. Yeah. Okay.
Thanks, through you, Mayor. I just want to correct myself here, just like for the record. But they did reach out to me, so that's correct. But they did want a meeting, and I declined the meeting, stating that it would be more appropriate for them to go be working with staff. So I was wrong, and also that's the approach that I took. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Good clarification. In real time. Okay. So, Councillor Vasic, I know you said you might have further questions, but we're just. If you have other questions, okay, I was going to say this is a formal public meeting, so get them all on the table now. Okay, I don't see any other questions from staff. Is there someone here that is prepared to? Oh, sorry. Thank you very much, Kristen. I need to see if there's other delegations.
Thank you.
I'm moving too quickly. Thanks very much. Is there anyone else present here this afternoon who wishes to speak to this application? Seeing none. If there are no more delegations, this formal public meeting is concluded and the application is now open for council for a motion and debate. Is there anyone prepared to move this? Councillor Vasic, did you want to speak to it or move it?
Yeah, I'm happy to move it with a couple of comments if that's okay. Should I start with the comments or just move it? I'll just
start with, well, yeah. We'll put it on the table. So moved by Councillor Vasic, seconded by Councillor.
Well, I have to read it.
Oh, right, okay. Sorry.
Whereas council has considered all written and oral submissions, and whereas council has considered the professional opinions of planning staff, therefore be it resolved that council approves staff report IPPW 2026-040. 2, that council approve official plan amendment 63, OPA 63, Uniweber Properties Inc., 200 Weber Street North, in accordance with section 7 of the staff report IPPW 2025-067. And 3, that council approves zoning bylaw amendment Z-25-05, Una Weber Properties, Inc., 200 Weber Street North, in accordance with Section 7 of Staff Report IPPW 2025-067.
Thank you. So that's moved by Councillor Vassic, seconded by Councillor Bodley. Did you have comments?
Just a couple. I mean, we need, obviously, food, grocery stores, and more offices are fine, or whatever's going to go on top. It's all fine. It's a good vision. And so I don't have any concerns with the vision. But I do have concerns with how the whole process has kind of unfolded. It's strange. And so I'm moving this, but with caution, hoping that any of those concerns kind of got captured here and have also been captured through city staff and otherwise. So I think it's just important to note in public chambers that this is sort of like a unique situation, but not maybe in a good way. And so I'm flagging that to say to the next, and I don't know, it could be great in the end. I just think we need to proceed with caution and with our spidey senses up a little bit, but in a way that still says we trust that the applicant is hoping to do good, bring good things to the community. A grocery store by Village on the Green with pedestrian access would be so lovely. And I trust that staff are and have been and will continue to work through this diligently and with utmost concern to the community benefit that it will bring, but then also with the major concerns around flooding as well. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll just say, as I was just saying before, that we did try to work with the province on addressing some of those site-specific bylaw piece, but they continue to make us go through a site-by-site process, which is, their purview. But just say that I think it's, I look forward to a development going up there and having that space used. It's a great location and close to lots of amenities, including the residential area. So yeah, look forward to that moving ahead as quickly as possible. So with that, it's moved and seconded. Council, I'll just call the vote. All in favor? That is carried. Any opposed? No. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Kristen, Megan. I'm not sure who else is there, but thank you very much for your investment in Waterloo. And as we said, look forward to this project moving ahead. Okay, so now we're on to Official Plan Amendment number 72. This is a formal public meeting to consider item 8B, Official Plan Amendment number 72, and Zoning Bylaw Amendment Z-25-26, 388 Phillip Inc. and 388 Phillip Street. Any persons who want further notice of this application, including the passage of any bylaws, should sign the appropriate register in the binder located on the desk at the rear of the council chambers. If there is more than one binder, please make sure you are signing the appropriate one. Will clerk please advise council of the method used to give notice of the meeting and the dates on which notice was given?
Notice was advertised in the Waterloo Region Record on June 18th, 2026, and mailed or emailed on June 9th, 2026, to all property owners within 120 meters of the subject property and to public agencies. An informal public meeting was not held.
Thank you very much. So the city planner, Caitlin Bish, will now give a brief overview of the application.
Good evening, Mayor McCabe, members of council, city staff, and the public. This is the formal public meeting for Official Plan Amendment number 72 and Zoning Bylaw Amendment Z-25-26 for the lands municipally known as 388 Phillip Street. This is the first time council is reviewing this application, as an informal public meeting was not held. The subject property is located north of the Phillip Street and Columbia Street West intersection and is approximately 9.7 hectares in size, with frontage and vehicular access provided along both Phillip Street and Albert Street. The lands are immediately surrounded by office buildings, manufacturing buildings, medical clinics, as well as multi-unit mixed-use buildings. To the west of the lands is the Ion Light Rail Transit System and the University of Waterloo's David Johnson Research and Technology Park. The existing building on the subject lands has remained vacant since 2017. Schedule A of the City of Waterloo's official plan designates this property as employment, and Schedule A2 designates this property as business employment. This designation is contemplated to serve as a buffer between traditional industrial uses and more sensitive uses. The uses contemplated within this designation are typically considered to be compatible with more sensitive uses. The business employment designation is also intended to achieve a diverse range of light employment uses to facilitate complete communities. An update to the city's official plan was approved by the province in December 2025. The update, completed through Official Plan Amendment 58, or OPA 58, included an extensive modification and revisions to the city's official plan. As such, the business employment designation is no longer considered an employment area as defined by the provincial planning statement. Additionally, through updates made to the employment policy framework, a food store is now authorized as an ancillary use within the business employment designation. The lands are zoned as Business Employment 2, or E2-40, which permits employment uses such as offices, medical clinics, and light industrial uses. Ancillary uses intended to support these employment uses are also permitted, including a bake shop, cafe, restaurant, commercial-oriented uses, and childcare centers. I will note that at this point in time, the City of Waterloo zoning bylaw has not been updated to align with the changes made to the city's official plan through OPA 58. As such, a food store is not currently permitted within the E2 zone. The zoning bylaw. Through the current applications, the applicant has proposed a new food store, ancillary commercial uses, and some additional employment uses. The layout of these uses can be seen within the proposed building floor plan shown on the slide. There are no proposed changes to the building footprint or site plan at this time. Through these applications, the applicant has requested amendments to both the official plan and zoning bylaw to reflect the proposed development. The official plan amendment requested is to create an area-specific policy, or ASP, to permit a food store as a complementary use on the subject lands. The ASP shall refer to the zoning bylaw to regulate the scale of this use. The zoning bylaw amendment requested is to create a site-specific exemption to permit one food store with a maximum building floor area of 5,500 square meters, to permit ancillary uses to occupy up to 3,000 square meters of building floor area, and to permit the horizontal connection of an existing vertical geothermal system on the neighboring lands to the existing building. Staff have included wording within the proposed site-specific exemption to permit this connection while prohibiting any new vertical wells within the geothermal system. Staff are recommending that a holding be applied to the subject lands, which shall prohibit any new construction on the lands other than a 10% expansion of the existing building until confirmation of sufficient water capacity is confirmed, that a comprehensive block plan is completed, which identifies an active transportation connection along the north property line, and written confirmation that the implementation of the active transportation connection is confirmed. Furthermore, the holding shall prohibit the use of the existing building for any use which requires the existing water servicing capacity to be increased until confirmation of sufficient water capacity is provided. City staff have consulted with regional staff regarding the proposed geothermal connection from the neighboring lands. Regional staff have reviewed the proposal and have confirmed they have no objections to the proposed extension, provided no new vertical wells are permitted. Staff have reviewed all requests, public comments, as well as materials submitted through the formal application in consideration of this proposal. As such, staff recommend that Council approve staff report IPPW 2026-041 and approve official plan amendment number 72 and zoning bylaw amendment Z-25-26 as outlined in section 6 of the staff report. This concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions regarding this application.
Thank you very much, Caitlin. Council, other questions for staff? Councillor Rowe.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Thank you so much, Caitlin. I appreciate the presentation and the report. I'm wondering if you can just expand a little bit on the water usage and the geothermal connection. As I'm reading the report, I'm understanding that it's non-potable water and that it doesn't require additional wells. But I'm also curious about the holding provision then. So I'm wondering if you can just sort of fill in some of that for me.
Through the mayor to you, Councillor Rowe, I can touch on the water being used within the geothermal system first, and then I can touch on the holding because those are two separate parts of this application. In terms of the geothermal system that's being expanded on the neighboring lands, the applicant provided information through their submission that existing geothermal system on the lands was almost a test by the region to use what's referred to like as a deep bedrock aquifer. Because it's a deep bedrock aquifer, the water is considered non-potable due to the high levels of sulfates within the water, and is not considered drinking water, and is therefore independent of the municipal drinking water system. As such, the water that's being used to cool it is completely independent. The amount of water that they take through this system is regulated through a permit to take water, which is regulated by the Ministry of Environment, Conservation, and Parks. In terms of the holding, as I noted, I'm just going to pull it up now, but there's two kind of parts to it. The first one prohibits any new development on the land beyond a minor increase in the building floor area. This refers to requiring demonstrating that there's sufficient water capacity. The other portion of the holding, which refers to water, would be no use of the building which increases the existing water servicing supply. So that would be the infrastructure connecting the building to the road. If that had to be increased, then that holding would be required to be lifted prior to that being increased.
Great, thank you. And I just wanted to, and you did clarify that these are two separate things and we're not talking about the same water source. So thank you very much. I'm wondering as well if you can talk about the holding provision related to the active transportation holding provision and the future block plan.
Through the mayor to Councillor Rowe, the active transportation and block plan requirement came out of an active transportation connection that's been identified within the official plan. The city is unable to request that connection through the official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment process, but through discussions with the applicant and the staff, the city determined it was appropriate to apply holding to protect for this connection in the future. Should the applicant and the property owner choose to move forward with a new development on the property, they will have to provide a block plan that shows a comprehensive redevelopment of the property, which incorporates this active transportation connection. And then in addition to that, in part 3 of the holding, they will also have to provide confirmation that this active transportation connection is secured and provided to the city.
Great, thanks so much.
Thank you, Councillor Rowe. Are there other questions? Councillor Wright.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. So, you know, when I was reading through the report, it was clear to me that we've got a complementary use and an ancillary use within the proposed floor area. What I'm not clear on is in the comments, you know, in the when you circulate report, it talks about it being an adaptive, semi-temporary or interim use of the site. So is the idea that the existing building there would be retrofitted and this zoning would then allow the complementary and ancillary use? Excuse me, I need some water. So the question is whether it's an adaptive reuse of the existing building.
Through the mayor to you, Councillor Wright. Yes, so it's my understanding that at this time the property owner has no intent to further expand the building, and should they wish to do so beyond 10%, they would require to lift the holding as it is. The intent is that all the proposed uses are being contained within the existing building.
Great, that's what I wanted to understand. And then my second question just has more to do with the E2 zoning. And this is not specifically related to the zoning issue at hand about the complementary and ancillary use, but it has to do with how we're monitoring data centers because of our water supply issue and because of the need to not be adding new water. I'm just wondering if in this phase where you know, we're in a heightened environment where people are the general public is turning its attention to data centers and the proliferation of data centers. Are we currently basically managing that process through holding provisions, or do we have more policy that we can work with to ensure that within that E2 zoning, where it's as of right use, that we're being careful about how we're proceeding?
Through the mayor to Councillor Wright, there is a general provision within the city zoning bylaw which does require that any development have sufficient capacity. And as such, that's the policy that staff have been referring to when building permits have been coming forward for as-of-right uses. It's my understanding that at this time, permits that are effectively like for like are ones that are able to move forward. So should any use that's permitted as of right choose to move forward for a building permit, as long as they're able to demonstrate that the water supply that they're utilizing is the same as what's existing, they would be able to move forward as long as the use is permitted within the zoning. For new applications that are proceeding forward, such as residential developments, which are significantly increasing the density and then therefore the water demand, staff are applying holdings as necessary. In this case, the holding was specifically written for the site to allow the applicant to move forward with this use at this time, as they've demonstrated that the water, so long as the water used for any of these uses is equivalent to what is being able to use in the building now.
Okay, thank you for that. And then as a secondary measure, I know when we were at the Association of Municipalities of Ontario conference last year, we talked to the ministry about the sort of first come, first serve process for accessing energy. And in here, it's clear in the report that Enova has cleared this and says everything's good to go, we have capacity. I guess my concern is if we were to see an increase in applications for data centers or conversions within the E2, that we do have this consideration about first come, first serve to the electricity load, and I'm just wondering if staff could speak to that.
Yeah, I'm going to say maybe we can direct that to Commissioner Ormson. Did you want to, because my understanding is that there is a review that we were going to undertake to come back, or staff were going to come back with a more fulsome policy on this. Go ahead, Mr. Ormson.
Certainly, thank you, Mayor, and through you to Councillor Wright. It is an evolving discussion at provincial level, as you know, Councillor Wright. I know in meetings that Mr. Anderson and I had with Enova recently, our understanding is that anything up to about 10 megawatts is more or less approved as of right. It's not taxing on the hydro grid such that it would require specialized approval from the Independent Electricity Operator Board. But it is something that we want to watch. We want to manage over time just to make sure that we don't see, individual uses consume too much electrical capacity. Just for context, in this case, the proposed data center use is on the order of about 27,000 square feet. That's extremely small for a data center, as council can imagine. It would be classed as a small enterprise type data center versus a hyperscale data center that the minimum square footage would be around 200,000 square feet. So at least in this case, and probably for the foreseeable future, we're confident that we're not going to encounter too many problems. But your question is a good one, and it's certainly on our radar to monitor.
Thanks, Mr. Ormson. Does that, yeah, that helps, yeah. And I would just add that certainly I'm a member of the Association of Municipalities of Ontario's board, and we have asked the province as AMO, for more discussion and review of regulations, because we don't want to get into a case where a large data center or any large electricity user gets, like right now, it's a first come, first serve basis, so we don't want critical public infrastructure we don't want to lose out on the ability to build and maintain critical public infrastructure, in our case, like a hospital particularly, because some other large energy or electricity user has applied to Enova prior to the critical public infrastructure. So we are certainly asking the province to take a look at that, but we haven't had the movement that we're looking for yet, but we'll continue to keep asking. So thanks for that. I don't know if are there other questions, council, about this application? Okay, thanks, Caitlin. And I know we have a delegation. We have Brandon Simon from the Planning Partnership here to speak to this. Welcome, Brandon.
Good afternoon, Mayor McCabe, council, staff, and members of the public. Brandon Simon, I'm principal with the Planning Partnership, so I'm the planning consultant on behalf of the applicant. I'll keep my remarks very brief, as Caitlin did a great job going through the details of the proposal. Very kind of interesting site and context. It's located within an evolving MTSA, obviously the major research and technology major transit station area. It's a very large building that's been vacant for approaching 10 years, as Caitlin noted, and that's despite very active marketing efforts from the owner trying to find industrial user, office user, and they've been unable for the past little while. And so more recently, they've kind of explored other opportunities that I think are very well suited to the rapidly evolving context. You know, an influx of residential and other uses here really necessitates increased need for other supportive commercial uses as well. The location is really ideal for those supportive commercial uses near the two universities, Northdale neighborhood, David Johnson Research and Technology Business Park, really centrally located within a mix of different uses, employment uses, residential, et cetera. And also very well connected to a multimodal transportation system. So you have both local and rapid transit, active transportation. This site also has a large existing surface parking lot, so really well connected to any possible means of transportation to get to the site. And then in terms of the proposal, really the thrust of the application is to permit the food store, which will occupy a little under half of the building. It'll be the third location of kind of a specialty food store that has existing locations in Guelph and Milton. We think it's an ideal location for this type of use to support the range of different uses around the site, as I noted. Also additional ancillary commercial uses, potentially restaurants, service uses that you often see co-locate with food stores in kind of today's food store environment. There's obviously some prior discussion about the data center, and on that note, I'll note that the connection to the existing geothermal system allows for a significant reduction in electrical need for an already very small data center. And the expansion of the geothermal system is an existing system, no new vertical wells required. We've gone through extensive consultation with the region who are supportive of this proposal to really optimize that existing system without putting any strain on the domestic water supply because it's taken from a different aquifer. And so that extension, just from the site next door, it's from the hub development, which is located just to the south, will support the data center as well as the other uses and provide much more sustainable mechanical systems to support the existing building. Overall, there's a clear demand for a grocery store in this location, given the lack of options in this area, as well as the interest from this tenant. Food stores are very judicious in where they locate. A lot of thinking goes into having enough population there, not having too much competition, and there's clear demand here for a food store at this location. This is a very pragmatic approach to reuse the existing building. Is in order to provide employment opportunities and commercial services into this building that's sat vacant for so long. It's also very functionally well designed to support this use. There are a number of existing loading facilities, large parking area, very convenient entrances, a number of them that can support these different uses. So although it wasn't designed for this purpose originally, it's a great adaptive reuse opportunity. And I think that those new uses will be very supportive to the evolving and surrounding community and provide more local options for food stores and other services. So that's really what I wanted to highlight here, but I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you very much, Brandon. Council, other questions? Councillor Rowe.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Thank you, Brandon. Always nice to see you. Can you just give me a little bit more information about the data center and sort of, do you have someone lined up for the data center? What are the thoughts on that?
Sure. Through Mayor McCabe, always nice to see you as well, Councillor Rowe. At this point, the intention is that the owner would actually own and manage the data center, and the intention is that it would be for Canadian businesses. There are a lot of additional complexities when you talk about international businesses, obviously. And I won't, proclaim to be a data center expert, but I know there's kind of an emerging thinking about data sovereignty and providing opportunities for Canadian businesses and users to have their data stored on Canadian soil where it's subject to Canadian laws and rules and regulations. And so the owner thinks there's a market for that, especially with obviously the high-tech focus of Waterloo. That's not to say that you need to be located right next to a data center. Obviously, with cloud computing, you don't need that anymore, but certainly there's an infrastructure in place here and a technological know-how to support that type of use. So that's kind of the thinking. It's a very small part of the building, but With the geothermal system being right nearby, there's a really good opportunity to do this in a way that's much more sustainable, much more efficient to operate, much more affordable to operate because the geothermal provides such a supporting hand in the cooling aspect.
Great, thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Are there other questions for? Nope, okay, seeing none, thanks very much,
Thank you.
Brandon. If there are no more is there anyone present who wishes to speak to this application, pardon me? Seeing none, if there are no more delegations, this formal public meeting is concluded and the application is now open to council for a motion and debate. Did you want to read that, Councillor Rowe? Okay.
Thank you, yes, I'll move that. I will move the motion to approve the application, whereas council has considered all written and oral submissions, and whereas council has considered the professional opinions of planning staff, therefore be it resolved that council approve IPPW 2026-041, that council approve official plan amendment number 72, OPA 72, 388 Phillip Incorporated for 388 Phillip Street as set out in Section 6 of Report IPPW 2026-041, that council approve zoning bylaw amendment Z25-26, 388 Phillip Incorporated for 388 Phillip Street as set out in Section 6 of Report IPPW 2026-041.
Thank you very much. And are you prepared to move? You're moved by
I'm
Councillor.
moving it with comments.
Yep, but we'll just,
You do a
who's
seconder.
seconded by Councillor Freeman. Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor
Thank
Rowe.
you. Very short comments. I was happy to see this come forward. I agree that the food store in this location is needed. I've heard that from the residents. They're going as far as Walmart, and they're going up to Northfield, so they're looking. This came to me in comments before this came forward. So this is a really good addition to the neighborhood. And the data center is an interesting piece. We've talked about the concerns about that, but I think that the data sovereignty is an interesting perspective. So I'm happy to move this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rowe. So it's been moved and seconded. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. And thank you very much to the group. Appreciate, as I said to the previous delegations, thank you. Appreciate the investment in Waterloo and look forward to that moving ahead as quickly as possible. Okay, so now we are on to, this is our third formal public meeting of the day to consider item 8C, general amendments to zoning bylaw 18-050, application Z-26-01, the Corporation of the City of Waterloo, citywide. Any persons who wish further notice of this application, including the passage of any bylaw, should sign the appropriate register in the binder located on the desk at the rear of the council chambers. If there's more than one binder, please make sure you are signing the appropriate one. Will the clerk please advise council of the method used to give notice of the meeting and the dates notice was given?
Notice was advertised in the Waterloo Region Record on June 18th, 2026, and mailed or emailed on June 10th, 2026, to all property owners within 120 meters of the site-specific property locations and to public agencies. An informal public meeting was not held.
Thank you. Okay, over to our planner, Ashlyn Fox, and I guess Caitlin Bish is in the supporting role. They will now provide a brief overview of this application.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Good afternoon, Mayor, members of council, city staff, and the public. This is the formal public meeting for the city-initiated general amendments to the zoning bylaw, application Z-26-01. This is the first time council is hearing this application, as an informal public meeting was not held. By way of background, the zoning bylaw 2018-050 was approved by council in 2018 and applies to all lands and buildings in the city, except land subject to the community planning permit bylaw along the Herb Street corridor and uses exempted by legislation. Staff occasionally undertake general amendments to the zoning bylaw in order to keep the bylaw current, to improve efficiencies, correct errors, and resolve minor issues. This round of general amendments is the part one of a series of amendments staff will be bringing forward. Appendix A of the staff report includes a detailed list of the proposed amendments for this round. For clarity, staff have organized the proposed amendments through this round into 5 sections. Part 1 includes amendments related to changes to provincial legislation and city regulations. Staff have determined applicable revisions required to align the bylaw with such changes. Part 2 of the proposed amendments include technical revisions to correct errors and improve clarity throughout the bylaw. These amendments include corrections to the general regulations section, parking section, and zoning categories section within the bylaw. Part 3 is in regards to the report that was brought forward in February of this year for inclusionary zoning. The changes were recommended in report IPPW 2026-001, but their corresponding bylaw was not brought forward at that time. These amendments seek to implement those changes. Part 4 includes amendments proposed to improve existing regulations. These amendments include minor changes to help improve clarity and consistency throughout the bylaw. This part also includes new provisions where staff have identified as necessary. All amendments proposed in Part 5 relate to the recently announced acute care hospital. The zoning bylaw does not currently include a definition for a hospital use, so staff are proposing to introduce one. The hospital definition also provides the opportunity for this use to be included within other definitions, like a government use, a public service, and sensitive use, to ensure the general regulations for such uses applies to the hospitals. As a part of this section of the general amendments, staff are also proposing a new site-specific bylaw for the lands currently planned for the new hospital. In addition to the new site-specific bylaw for the hospital lands, as part of this round of general amendments, staff are also proposing amendments to 3 other site-specific bylaws. Site-specific C22 is in regards to a parking rate for the properties at 9 Lodge Street and 175 to 177 Regina Street North. A minor variance was recently approved to further reduce the parking rate, and as such, staff proposed to repeal this site-specific as it is no longer required. The site-specific C68 applies to properties within the Tamarack Drive, Sorrel Place area, as well as the Pepler Street and Elgin Street area. This site-specific was intended to exclude specific building types on the lands. However, with the provincial legislation of Bill 23 and the citywide amendments for 4 units, the site-specific C68 is not in alignment with these changes. Therefore, staff proposed to repeal it. Lastly, staff have noted a technical error to the sections referenced in site-specific C198, which is applied to various properties within the E1 zone. This amendment is proposed to correct this and provide further clarification on the existing site-specific provision. The recommendations are to approve the report as well as asking council to approve the amendments to the zoning bylaw as set out in Appendix A of Report IPPW 2026-033. And that concludes the presentation. Caitlin and I will be happy to answer any questions from council.
Thank you very much. Okay, thanks very much. Appreciate the information in the report. Council, are there questions for these? Okay, I just had just one quick one, or sorry, 2 quick ones. Under the section 6 in table 2, where it says about loading spaces, it has bedrooms are replaced by units. And is unit referring to like the entire like apartment, or what exactly does unit refer to?
Yes, to the mayor, yes, this amendment is proposing to replace the term bedrooms with the entire unit.
With the entire unit?
Yes.
Okay, I wasn't sure if that just meant you were now calling the bedroom a unit or, okay, so thanks for that. And then just under part 5 of the amendments where it's the hospital use, I know it has educational institution in there. I think that's what it's called. I don't have it right in front of me, but does research need to be included, or did you consider that and think it's captured through that?
Through the mayor, to the mayor. So the introduction of the site-specific exemption does not preclude the uses that are already permitted within the zoning on that land. So being within the research and technology park, research would already be a permitted
Okay.
use.
Of course, okay, thanks very much for that. Should have assumed it was in the name. Thanks. You sure, Councillor Basak? Okay.
Okay, through you, Mayor. Just because I'm not going to be here next time, and so I just want to leave a few things publicly. And I know that I've already communicated this to you via email about the hospital zoning amendment, and it's just related to the possibility for housing that might coordinate well with the hospital. And so you indicated in your email that assisted living may allow for some residential there. And then there was another one in. Clearly, it's a day of being not organized, so I don't have your email up, but there was another thing in there in the zoning amendment that would also be considered for residential. But and also that likely the new hospital will require further amendments to the zoning bylaw, so these things can come forward. But I just wanted to encourage staff, the hospital, future councils, that there may be other uses we don't even think of that I think might be really interesting. So for example, we have our annual contribution to the Chamber of Commerce to show doctor residents or future are they doctors at that point, residents, around town to say this is a really great place to live. So it may be that there are some apartments for future doctors who are working at the hospital. And maybe, I don't know if the one in there already would be considered for like mental health and addictions, like supportive or transitional housing, but I'm sure future councils will consider immediate dire community needs for there, but I just wanted to encourage everyone to be really expansive what they're thinking about what kind of residential might be able to go there.
Through the mayor,
and sorry, and just have feelers out between now and then about any potential partnerships that might arise when you're having conversations with people. People indicate all the time like, oh, this might be a need, so to foster those relationships.
Through the mayor to Councillor Basak, staff have consulted numerous times with the Waterloo Region Health Network, and they did have a very expansive list of uses that they originally wanted permitted. Through this amendment, the intent was to just permit the hospital as of right to ensure that they can move forward with their development planning. One of the things we did note with the introduction of these uses is the official plan and the regulations in the official plan would still apply in this case, so we do have to do further policy consideration, and there may be other amendments to other policies across the city that might be required. But it's such a high-scale development at this point. We don't want to put any amendments in place that might have to be changed in 6 months to 2 years. So, but very much appreciated, and we'll make note of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Caitlin. Councillor Hanmer, okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Through you, and it's not really a question, Caitlin, for you, it's more of a comment to my colleague. Just a reminder to council that the hospital project itself has 3 different locations and 3 different phases. And one of the key considerations for one of the other phases, which isn't in the city of Waterloo, is forensic mental health and housing that goes along with that. So it's a key component of it. I think what's being put together in the risk of being in conflict is what's being addressed at the new acute site. And so I can assure you that housing comes up every single time we talk about any parts of the hospital. So it will be addressed, but potentially not in what's part of the city of Waterloo.
Thank you for that clarification, Councillor Hanmer. Okay, are there any other comments or questions here? Seeing none. Is someone prepared to move this? No, it doesn't. It doesn't say that I have to do that. Oh, on the other page it does. Sorry. didn't turn the page over. Oh, my goodness. Okay, is there anyone else present here tonight who wishes to speak to this application? Sorry. Seeing none. Okay. If there are no more public delegations, this formal public meeting is concluded and the application is now open to council for a motion and debate. Is there someone here to, Councillor Bodley, you're prepared to move it?
Yeah, whereas council has considered all written and oral submissions, and whereas council has considered the professional opinions of planning staff, therefore be it resolved that council approve report IPPW 2026-033, and that council approve zoning bylaw amendment Z-26-01, general amendments to zoning bylaw 2018-050, as set out in section 5 of report IPPW 2026-033.
Thank you, Councillor Bodley. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Rowe. Seeing that there's no further questions, all in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much, Caitlin and Ashlyn, for your work on that. Okay, so consideration of notice given in a previous meeting. There are none. There are no notices of motion. There's no communications and correspondence. There's no unfinished business. Council, are there any questions? Oh, Councillor Wright.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. An email came in from a resident recently about our booking system for pavilions in the park, and so I just wanted to ask this question. Right now, if you want to book a pavilion space in the park, it's an all-day booking, and it's not available for a portion of the day. And so I'm just wondering why that changed from previous years. And then the second question I have is regarding waste in the park. Oftentimes when folks are using those very excellent picnic facilities, it's not a pack in, pack out kind of situation, and our waste receptacles are really, really full. And so it's sort of I guess, a two-pronged question about the availability of those picnic pavilion spaces and whether there's a better way for us to handle the waste that is being produced. The waste is especially, even if there was a waste deposit charge or something on the booking, it might actually encourage people to take their waste with them when they're departing the park. And so just wondering if someone could speak to that.
I guess we'll look at Robin. Okay, Director of Parks.
Through the chair to you, Councillor Wright. So the second part of your question actually kind of answered the first. We did used to have a booking system where you could book in the morning, you could book in the afternoon. There was a number of issues that were experienced with that setup. A lot of times the first booking hadn't departed when the first booking was arriving, and there wasn't somebody there we're just not staffed to monitor that, to say, okay, your booking's up, it's time for you to go, because it's an open park space, right? So say if your booking opened at 12 and the next booking started at 1, a lot of cases when staff showed up to do the changeover, like to do the cleanup of the space, the morning booking was still there, or the early booking. So it was creating a lot of conflict to move people along. And in some cases, they would be like, okay, and they would move kind of adjacent the pavilion and just kind of linger and hang out there. And then the afternoon booking was like, they need to leave. Like, we're setting up, they need to leave. And it just created a lot of conflict. So a decision was made that we would just do one booking. A bigger part of that was, in part to your second question around the garbage. A lot of times a booking will show up and they'll bring balloons and they'll staple things to the area, and they'll have, chicken bones or watermelon rinds all over the ground. And it's just, we're not staffed to come in and do that type of a cleanup in a 1-hour changeover when there's so many pavilions within the park. And so that was part of the rationale as well. Third piece would be with parking. So there's that changeover, similar to what you would see, say, for ice time, is that, the one rental is leaving, the other rental is coming in, and we just don't have the parking to accommodate both parties, especially with how popular the park is, specifically Waterloo Park has become since COVID. So we've made some changes primarily to address the parking in the park, trying to encourage rentals to park at alternative parking lots outside of the park, take active transportation, take the eye on, but it doesn't always work, especially if it's out-of-town visitors. So that's the answer to the first question. The second question in regards to waste, absolutely is a problem, and it's, you know, your idea of a, I think you had mentioned maybe like a depot where you drop it off. That could be explored. Typically, people leave and they just leave all their garbage on the site and staff are left to deal with it. It would be tough to charge like a surcharge fee because the space is also kind of common first come, first serve. So then you get into a scenario where it's, well, I didn't leave that mess. Someone must have came in after me. You know, we could go to a system where they take a photograph of the site and then show us the photo. You know, there would be some logistics to hold a deposit and return a deposit. We haven't really explored that. We've just taken the burden of, we just go in and we clean it up. That's the approach that we've taken to this point.
Okay, so given the complexities, and I understand the burden on the park, like it's really well used. And so I'm just wondering if there may be examples from other communities that we could look at that might introduce some of the flexibility back with better controls. Just wondering if we could start exploring that.
Yes, so we're in the process of the Waterloo Park plan update. One of the items that we're looking at through that plan update is the carrying capacity of the park, and you know, how realistic it is to put so many different varying pressures on the park and what that park means to community users and how it's used. We're exploring ideas of, you know, should those spaces be first come, first serve? Should there be different fees for non-residents versus residents? And we're trying to weigh out all those options. So that will be part of the process. We understand right now, and I'll go back to parking. Parking is hands down the #1 issue in the park. I don't want to say there's not enough of it because, you know, you could argue that there's enough alternative ways to get to the park. But a big piece of this is figuring out the parking and how to get people to the park without providing, you know, all that hard space with, you know, in the park for parking. I don't know if that really answered your question. Hopefully it did. If not, I can clarify some more.
Yeah, I mean, we can have some more conversation about this. I think that there's likely some booking innovation that is possible, and so I'd like to explore that further with staff.
Certainly.
I think you were saying there's an app for that. There might be. Okay, so any other questions of council members of staff? Okay, seeing none, new business. Okay, Councillor Roach.
Sure. On Wednesday, on the 15th, the application deadline closes for the CCAWR, Canadian Caribbean Association Waterloo Region Scholarships, close for undergraduates and graduates. So get on their website and apply. They're looking for people, they're looking for applicants. So it expires on Wednesday.
Oh, great, good to know. Okay, thank you for sharing that. Councillor Vassic.
Thanks to you, Mayor. This was an event from June 20th, but our last council meeting went so late, I decided not to share it then. But there was the first ever neighborhood picnic in Dunvegan Park. A resident took it upon herself to organize one with the support of the neighborhoods team, and I just wanted to share a couple of quotes from neighbors that she shared with me. Via email. It says, "We've been trying to meet neighbors for years now and haven't been too successful. This was a wonderful idea and we met so many people." And then the other one is just, "I love that the city is here. It's great to see this focus on neighborhood events in Waterloo lately." And I think there were about 60 people who came to the event. So it sounds like this is going to be a regular event. And then I also just wanted to mention the KW Palestine Festival that was yesterday at the City of Kitchener. It was a lovely day. Obviously, it's a political event. And with that comes some, community tensions, but that's good. And I love a political event. So Of course, there was that element to it. They had an art exhibit, and then they also sort of put up a prison cell with information in it. Then there were cultural celebrations and good food, of course, and vendors. And I just wanted to, because there was some attempts to shut down the festival, as far as I understand, from some just online discourse. I didn't follow it that closely. But I think I just wanted to note and somehow capture in the minutes and say sort of for public consumption is that not every event is going to be, or every decision or every movement is going to fully capture all of our beliefs. Even within the movements that we each support, there's disagreement, and there ought to be. The problem is when the infighting becomes so difficult that the movement is abandoned, or when other movements try to squash others. There's solidarity, and there ought to be solidarity between movements, and that can include civil discourse. And we can't expect to not do any harm when we disagree about those kind of social movements, but we can reduce the harm, but we have to acknowledge there will be some harm and that we need to do some repair. And so I want to say that because I watched some of the chatter online and the political attempts from outside of this region even, to shut down the festival. And I understand the fears and concerns that come with that, but really, I think I'm encouraged by our cities, within the region and our councils, to acknowledge that there is solidarity between movements, and it's not perfect. Certainly, we don't condone anti-Semitism. Certainly, I don't know what I just said there, but I think the intention is clear with what I said before that. Should whatever I said be misunderstood? I was talking to I'm almost done here, but I was talking to a kid who's in my kid's mom, who's in my kid's class last year, from Palestine, and she was like, all the leaders are in the wrong here. And who suffers? It's civilians. It's regular, everyday people who suffer at the hands of power and war. And so I'm really glad to have gone to the festival and to have seen lots of people there, and I hope we can just continue to promote the message that there's solidarity between movements. So thanks to the organizers of that and to the City of Kitchener for keeping it going even under such pressure.
Thank you, Councillor Vasek. Councillor Hanmer.
Thank you. A little bit tough to follow because I'm going in a different direction with an announcement, and just reminding us that we are hosting with other cities in Waterloo region the Ontario Summer Games. And I want to do a shout out really to our own staff, Parks and Rec, and also facility staff who are doing an amazing job getting us ready for the 4,500 athletes and their coaches and families that will be coming at the last week of July. Both universities are playing host to either residents or active games, so there's lots of activity through that weekend, which is the long weekend in August. So if you have a chance, come out and see some of the amazing activities. If you really want to stay cool, the hockey facilities at Rim Park will be the coolest place to be.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Hanmer. Councillor Rowe.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I just wanted to give a shout out to neighborhoods. They supported Beechwood North's Canada Day celebration, which was just incredible. I mean, the pool was full, they had activities, they had an artist on site, and they had, and I don't even know what it was, but it was some blow-up thing for the kids that stretched the entire length of their tennis court. So it was really super, and it's really important, like as community builders, that we do support these types of neighborhood gatherings. So that was a lot of fun. And I was not here at the end of the June 22nd meeting, so I did not get to mention that World Refugee Day, Waterloo Region was held on Friday the 19th, and it was a really meaningful event. We actually had Reception House bring a number of new arrivals who'd only been here for about 2, maybe 3 days. And that's really the focus of CORIC and World Refugee Day, to build bridges, to help inform, and to make people feel welcome. So I just wanted to mention that, and to all of the refugees and the newcomers who have contributed to our community over the year and who were recognized as recipients of the World Refugee Day Award of Recognition. Because the discourse right now is so negative in times of economic struggle, and when things feel uncertain, the language goes to blaming the other. And this was such a reflection of how people who come to our country looking for stability really contribute to our community. So I just wanted to mention that.
Thank you very much, Councillor Rowe. Councillor Wright.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor, I'm just going to build on that, this set of comments here. But the community picnic at Waterloo Park definitely deserves a big shout out. And this is one of the biggest events that we do during the summer as a city. And it almost blew away. But luckily, they kept everything on track and got it booted up again after the weather moved through. And just big props to that team for persevering. Despite very, very hot weather and volatile, rain and wind, etc. And then on the heels of that, this past weekend was the Culture and Festival, which again is reinforcing this message of everyone is welcome here. And Isabel, Cisterna, and Neruda Arts every year bring, this festival to some part of our community, whether it's St. Jacobs or Waterloo or Kitchener, etc. And it's always such an incredible vibe. The drumming is what really, I think, brings us all together. Speaking of drumming, we've got Afro vibes unfolding across this week with the Afro Dance Workshop in Waterloo Public Square, and then Pilates in the Square, and then Comedy Night at the Jazz Room, and then Afro Vibes moves off to the City of Kitchener to Carl's Air Square. So look for that all this week.
Thank you very much. There's always lots going on in the city, so check out Create Waterloo or Uptown BIA and find out what's going on. Or our own newsletters that come from the communications department and our neighborhoods team, etc. Okay. Everyone's done with new business. Thanks very much for sharing. Enactment of bylaws. Moved by Councillor Rowe, seconded by Councillor Vasek. All in favor? That is carried. Adjournment. Councillor Bodley, moved by Councillor Bodley, seconded by Councillor Hanmer. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you, council and staff, and anyone watching. Enjoy the rest of the summer.